I call the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m. to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swung Creek, comprise the tribe that have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Commissioner Alsager?
Here.
Commissioner Bush?
Here.
Commissioner Birschbacher?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Vice Mayor Eke?
Here.
Mayor Wingard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you all for joining us tonight. Close call there, but let's see. We're going to move in now into proclamations and presentations. First one is I have a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of the achievements, contributions, and rich cultural heritage of African Americans, recognizing their pivotal role in shaping the history and progress of our nation. And whereas the origins of Black History Month trace back to the efforts of Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, we sought to ensure that the accomplishments and struggles of Black Americans are acknowledged and preserved. And whereas African Americans have made profound contributions in every field, including science, education, business, law, politics, sports, and the arts, enriching the fabric of our society and inspiring future generations. And whereas this month serves as a reminder to reflect on the resilience, strength, and enduring spirit of African Americans in the face of adversity, while also recognizing the ongoing pursuit of justice, equity, and inclusion in our community and nation. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant is committed to promoting diversity, inclusion, and understanding, and encourages all residents to participate in the many educational and cultural events that highlight Black history and culture. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim February 2025 as Black History Month in Mount Pleasant and encourage all residents to honor and celebrate the invaluable contributions of African Americans throughout history and today. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and the Great Seal of the City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, this 10th day of February 2025. Okay, and then at this time, we will be receiving a presentation by City Manager DeSense on 2024 and 2025 goals and objectives.
I got the presentation fired up here, but good evening, everyone. We're in that fun time of year again, too, where we go over our 2024 goals that we have completed. We will also talk about our upcoming 2025 goals and objectives. And about a month from now, we'll be talking about 2026 goals and objectives. So first quarter is always this interesting time of talking about goals and objectives from 3 years. So I'll start with goals and objectives from 2024. Now, similar to my previous presentations, the column on the far left indicates either green, yellow, or red. Green indicating those goals and objectives that we had completed from the year, yellow indicating those that need further action or further things to take place in order to be considered completed, and then red indicates those goals and objectives which we were unable to complete for whatever reason, and I'll talk about those things. First up, complete required landfill remediation efforts. We did everything that we said we were going to do with our environmental consultant in 2024 in testing of the landfill. That consultant is now compiling the 2024 data, and based on that data and guidance from the state, we'll be developing our plans going forward with the landfill. Prepare a climate change preparedness plan. The City Commission adopted that plan in Q4 of 2024. Our first objectives here in 2025 related to that will be to work with a consultant to identify those goals and objectives within that plan, which would give us the best return on investment, and start to plan for years forward as to which of those and when we will complete those goals. Adopt best practices in asset management. The City Commission also adopted an asset management policy in 2024, Q4. Moving forward from there, we'll be looking to apply that asset management policy in a number of different ways that we conduct business. Looking for ways to cut down or find ways to compensate for services provided to non-city customers without payment. We did a few different things here in 2024. One, fee modifications were adopted by the City Commission in Q4 along with our budget for 2025. Also at the same time, city staff was very creative in securing further money from the state of Michigan to support our PEAK program, which we identified as a program that needed substantial change. And so with the additional revenues and some modifications to the program, we're able to make the program much more sustainable going forward. Monitor the city's tax base and develop interventions to stabilize. We made projections in 2024 about the next 10 years of what to expect, and staff will continue to monitor that going into the future. Luckily, our 2025 budget projects an increase in property tax values of about 2 to 3%, but we'll continue to monitor that going forward. Next, continue positive and productive relationships with community partners, residents, and businesses. Create a workforce development program in partnership with GI Tech, CMU, and Mid-Michigan. In 2024, staff worked really closely with GI Tech folks in order to identify those programs that would benefit both organizations best. We found that our fire study program with the organization is what we can partner best on. We're happy that in 2025, it looks like we're going to continue developing that partnership to try to get more of those students interested in the fire service. We also partnered with Central Michigan University on a number of different internships as well too, including our sustainability intern as well as our consumer behavior studies program that we had done, and we look forward to continuing those kind of programs into the future as well. Renew the city's redevelopment ready community certification. We were able to renew that certification in Q2 of 2024. Expand walkability in Mount Pleasant. All of our planned sidewalk was completed in 2024 and on budget. Identify grants and partners to expand the MMP GKB trail and increase signage on the trail. What we set out to do was to identify the pathway for a southern trail connection, which connects Nelson Park to Hannesbark Park, identify and secure the pathway rights, apply for grants for it, and complete our design and engineering. The city was awarded 2 grants with this project, a TAP grant for $400,000, which is through MDOT, and then also the MDNR grant for $400,000 as well too. However, in awarding the MDNR grant, that pushes our project actually to be completed in 2026. Initially, we thought we were going to be completing this in 2025, but in order to utilize the MDNR funding, it will be pushed to 2026. Create a community-friendly space in our downtown area. We achieved that with our Town Center project, and that was completed in Q4 2024 with the grand opening held in conjunction with our Christmas celebration. Upgrade and add universal access to Chippewater's playground structure. That was completed in Q2 of 2024. Create recreation programs identified in the Recreation Needs Assessment. Now, what was interesting in Director Biscorner's presentation on this is that there was not a lot of push for new recreation programming, but there was a significant interest on behalf of the community in new events. And so I know we'll talk about that further on in the presentation as well. So more work to be done on that in 2025, but at least the recreation program study was completed in 2024. Create a sense of place by promoting the Meet Here branding and working to become a cool destination. Promote that Mount Pleasant is centrally located. Staff had produced a video highlighting our central location in 2023. That video will continue to be shared on our social media channels. Work with community partners to support an event that brings more people to Mount Pleasant. This is something that we identified as needing more resources on and more partnership within the community. Staff is working with some of those partners to try to develop some sort of a combined event for 2025, and we'll continue that into the next fiscal year. Continue to monitor the analytics of our communication channels and make sure our information stays fresh and relevant. Communications Department now submits a quarterly report to the City Manager's office, informing the City Manager of various sort of posts and those kind of things that the community is interested in. Those posts on social media, especially that get the most traction, the most shares, those kind of things. And we'll utilize that and we'll continue that practice in the future to guide how and when we do our communications. Address the housing market demands in our community, including home ownership opportunities. Obviously, this one we knew was going to be a challenge moving forward, and so the goal for monitoring and evaluating the performance of our pilot and NEZ program. Spire Development, if you recall, was granted a pilot agreement by the City Commission in 2023, but did not receive MSHDA funding in early 2024. Their next application cycle was in December of 2024. Staff has still not heard back as to the results of that latest round of financial assistance, and so we're still waiting to hear back from Spire on whether or not they were successful. Maximize economic viability on Mission Street. Engage stakeholders in future development options for the corridor. We do have a corridor improvement plan that is making its way through the number of different committees that we had assigned to review the plan. If you recall, we had a steering committee that was assigned of multiple community stakeholders, businesses, city staff, and the like. They had then passed the plan on to the Mission Street DDA. The Mission Street DDA has approved the plan in concept with some details to be worked out onto the Planning Commission, and that plan will make its way to the City Commission here within the next month or two. Determine interest in continuing the DDA TIFA districts beyond 2025. City Commission had talked about this in 2024, and we had 3 different TIFA districts that we were looking at. The Industrial TIFA District, which we determined had no future need to continue as all of the infrastructure projects had been built out in that industrial project, or in that industrial area, so we were going to close that one down in 2025. We had determined that the Mission Street DDA was very viable, very active, and we were going to continue that one for another number of years. But then also we wanted to revisit our Central Business District TIFA. That was one that the City Commission had asked to revisit either late last year or early this year, and it's my intent to have a work session with the City Commission at our next meeting to talk about the potential for that TIFA district. Then lastly, prepare the Mount Pleasant Center for future development opportunities. Consider long-term development options for the former Mount Pleasant Center property. As we had discussed before, the Court of Appeals had essentially decided against the city, which puts us in a very difficult position. City Commission will likely consider future action to take in 2025. That said, any questions on 2024 goals and objectives?
Commissioner Bush?
I just want to check the Spire development that we're waiting to hear about funds. Is that the same proposed development that they were talking about?
Correct, yep, the same proposed
Okay.
development that was approved by the City Commission in '23, yep.
Okay, just confirming. And then also, I in the last couple of weeks, we've exchanged some emails, but I feel like it's relevant to bring up here when we talk about the event programming. I just want to kind of follow up on my, you said that's in can we expect to hear maybe more on this developing plan? Because
Absolutely.
I had a lot of concerns about that last presentation.
Yep. Yes, as you had requested, and I know staff is working on this, is trying to get a list of different events that take place in the city of Mount Pleasant, and talk about the things that could or could not take place in town center, and bring that back to the city commission for further discussion.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Eke.
Okay, so Commissioner Bush has actually opened up part of what I was going to, what my question deals with. It has to do with the event planning. And your response is that you're looking at events that are already taking place
That's correct.
and to see what events might be brought to, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about new events, because in our conversation last time, we were talking about even something like a huge art event, something, and that's what I was thinking about. But right now, it seems to me that you're doing some part of that research to see what's viable, what already exists in the city, and what could be viable, at least what we could host in that particular space.
Correct. I know there's also discussion on the potential for new events in the future, but I know, as you had heard from Director Biscorner, right now, I think that resources are limited in that department. However, I know we've been talking internally about what it would take and how we might be able to bolster the resources in that department for the potential for future events, and some more conversation to be had on that in the near future as well, too.
Okay, you just saved yourself, because that's where I was going with this. We had that conversation, and I wanted to find out whether, what considerations, what plans are in place to address that. And of course, as you're saying, we don't have resources there. We used to have somebody who was assigned that responsibility of, organizing the events, right?
We do have
Am
an
I
individual
clear?
on staff, yes, correct, that is responsible for organizing events. I would say yes, though in trying to address this, though, obviously for new events, their capacity is quite
Stretched.
full, yes,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this point.
yeah,
And so we
okay.
would have to, we looked at that and we determined we would have to identify new resources if we were going to do more.
Okay, when you say new resources, does that include considering a position designated to that? Because if we're going to use this space that we've spent a lot of money, working on, we're going to need to have lots of events. And I'm thinking somebody designated to doing all of that and coordinating all of that with the community, as opposed to people who are already there, whose, capacities have been stretched beyond limits, right?
Correct, yes.
So are
we
you
would be talking
asking,
about-
is this a position that we should consider?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to be direct about this. Okay,
absolutely.
yeah,
I really appreciate you bringing this up, because this is what has been on the tip of my tongue. I feel like it meets our goal of, cool space. We're also talking about somebody who will create an institutional knowledge of like cultural things in Mount Pleasant. For example, our issue earlier with the sculptures, if we have a history of like things that have been done that's kind of a narrative, not to mention the possibility for interagency, municipality type cooperation. If you've got somebody who's that just fits so many of our goals. I would be very interested in finding out more about the possibility of a position like this and helping write like job descriptions and stuff.
Excellent.
okay. Okay, the NEZ program grant application, may I ask? Okay, so considering that we haven't heard much about that, and let's say hypothetically we don't hear anything, then what?
We have a couple of options at that point. Do we try to go back out for an RFP for another developer who might be interested in doing a project, and maybe they have a project that they could bring that might score better than Spire? That's always a possibility if we want to address it the same way.
Okay, because I'm thinking about backup plans. What's the next, If this doesn't happen, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Great question.
cool. Thank you.
Manager DeSenn says, we're talking about Spire. Could you remind me if Spire, was it Spire who had approached us with the potential development, or had we approached them with the potential
They
development?
had responded to the RFP that we had sent out
Thank you.
for such a process, for such a development.
Thank you. Any other questions for Manager DeSenn at this point? Was it
well-
the end, or
Oh,
we
I
went
got
to the
another
second? I
presentation,
was about
folks, so we got
yeah,
to talk 2025 still.
Gotcha. There we go.
Just
Yeah.
stay there,
We're
right?
letting you stay at the mic.
So 2025, I got slid over here. Let me go ahead and slide this over. 2025, I teed up goals and objectives much the same way, utilizing the same format, talking about our main goals, as well as the tactics, measurements, as well as our anticipated completion date, as well as our responsible parties as well, too. So let's start with maintain service excellence. Ensure that all city departments consistently meet established service standards and benchmarks to provide efficient and effective services to residents and visitors. Our tactics for this are to create a set of benchmarks, monitor our benchmarks throughout the year, and then to report on our benchmarks here. You'll see on Measure C, separate benchmarks worksheet. We are currently developing this with the senior management team. We've discussed and identified a number of different benchmarks that were truly within the wheelhouse of the city of Mount Pleasant. We didn't want to identify things that we were out of control of. Let's just say things like new building permits. Well, there's a lot that's contingent on new building permits. That's something we're more reactive to. What are the things that we do that we have total control of? Things like in the public safety sector, response times. Things like in public works, the kind of work that we do aligned with our goals and objectives for the year. The number of meters that we'll be looking to replace within the next year. Those things that are very much within our responsibility to be able to complete. And we'll set those stretch goals for ourselves at the beginning of the year and see if we can stay on track with them throughout the year. And so you'll hear the reporting on that. Implement recommendations from the fire study to optimize fire service delivery, enhance emergency response capabilities, and improve overall fire safety within the community. The idea is to take our study from the Center for Public Safety Management and to turn that into a number of identified goals. And what goals are we going to complete in quarters 2, 3, and 4 of 2025? We anticipate that quarter 1 will spend writing up the plan, and then we'll be reporting out on quarters 2 through 4, with quarter 4 being the final reporting for this year. Prioritize proactive maintenance and infrastructure upgrades to ensure the reliable operation of the water distribution system, minimizing disruptions and ensuring access to clean and safe water for all residents. This coincides with our project plan as part of the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which you may recall, the city was granted $10.5 million in the first tranche of a loan with the state, with $2.5 million of that being principal forgiveness. That'll be the first phase, very similar to how we underwent our construction project over at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, but we'll also be applying some of this to the distribution system of the water system as well, too. So we will report on the implementation of our project plan and have that to the City Commission by third quarter of this year. Regularly inspect, repair, and maintain roads and sidewalks throughout the city to enhance safety, accessibility, and mobility for all users. We'll develop a 2025 implementation plan of what we're going to do within the year, and then we'll report on those activities on a quarterly basis. Our measure for this, we're going to be utilizing the PACER system, which we rate the city streets and sidewalks on an annual basis. We anticipate that completion likely in quarter 3, if not early quarter 4 of 2025. Implement comprehensive asset management practices to effectively maintain cemetery facilities and grounds. You'll recall that we had adopted our asset management policy in 2024. We will utilize that as guidance for the cemetery facilities and grounds in 2025, looking at a number of different policies and procedures that we would create to support sustainable management of those assets. And we'll likely have that work completed by quarter 3 of 2025. Promote professional development. This is a big lift internally here, and a lot of it coincides with recruitment strategies, training and development, and also leadership development as well too. So the first one, implement targeted recruitment strategies to attract and select highly qualified candidates who possess skills, qualifications, and values necessary to excel in their respective roles within the organization. We'll develop an effective recruitment strategy based on best practices, implement that strategy, and then review the measurements on the strategy to see if it worked. Were we able to recruit the kind of individuals that we're looking for? We'll measure this with the number of qualified candidates recruited and the qualification of the qualified candidates compared to some of those previous methods as well too. And we'll have final reporting on this in Q4 of 2025. As we bring those new individuals on board, undoubtedly, there's going to be some skill sets that we're going to have to teach. And so we have a goal to develop comprehensive onboarding and training programs for new hires to ensure they receive the necessary knowledge, skills, and resources to perform the duties effectively and integrate seamlessly into their roles and the organizational culture. So we'll identify organizational learning and onboarding needs, develop training programs based on the learning and onboarding needs, and measure and review the programs to ensure they are meeting the goal of this program. We'll look at metrics including the total number of skills to be developed, the number of training resources to teach these new skills, and the number of people able to demonstrate the new skill once they've undergone the training. Again, reporting on this in Q4 of 2025. And then internally, building leadership development programs to identify, nurture, and cultivate emerging leaders within the organization, fostering continuity and succession planning to ensure a strong and capable leadership pipeline for the future. Very similar to the last one, a lot of this has to do with educational needs. Identify our internal learning needs, develop training programs based on those learning needs, and measure and review the programs to ensure they are meeting the goal of the program. Similar metrics for the last one as well too, total number of skills to be developed, number of training resources to teach the new skill, and the number of people able to demonstrate the new skill. Reporting to be done in Q4 of 2025. Address community needs, implement initiatives to enhance refuse and recycling services. There's a couple on here that were kind of gimmies right out of the get-go because we had adopted this as a goal early, if you recall, in the year. And then we get into 2025 and the idea is to have this completed in Q1 2025. Implement new refuse and recycling pickup. Completion of implementation would be our measure. Did I see a hand there, Mayor?
No.
Oh, my apologies. I thought you had
you're good.
a hand up. My apologies. So that one has been completed with the implementation of our new service. Obviously, staff continues to monitor that on a regular basis and making a little bit of tweaks, a little bit of adjustments here and there. But for the most part, it seems that the new program has been highly effective. And we'll look forward to doing some reporting for the City Commission on this sometime in 2025 as well, too, just to kind of talk about how that process went, where we're at later in the year, and where we go from there. Deploy smart meter technology to enhance service delivery, including real-time monitoring of utility usage, identifying opportunities for energy efficiency and conservation, and providing residents with tools and resources to better understand and manage their utility consumption. This is something I was talking about earlier with the implementation of new smart meters. These smart meters can be installed in individuals' homes. They can sign up online to have an account to monitor their usage in real time. They can get alerts for things like if water is continually flowing, they can set those kind of limits. So you could say, I need to be alerted of a leak, and you do have that capability with these systems. So I know staff is going to work to install these new meters throughout the year. Our metric is going to be the number of new meters that we think we can install. So staff, in coordination with this and also in coordination with the development of our 2026 goals, we'll be having a meeting on President's Day, and I don't doubt we'll start to assign some numbers or at least some stretch goals to this program to see what we think we can achieve in 2025. But we'll have some reporting at the end of the year for the City Commission on that one. Develop and implement outreach programs to increase citizen engagement and education on key community issues. This one was a little bit tricky in that we have to identify those issues that require education and then provide the necessary engagement and educational opportunities. But sometimes trying to identify what items or what things that individuals might need some more education or understanding on is always a little bit tricky, right? When you live and work in municipal government, these things sometimes become second nature. And trying to understand things from the customer standpoint can sometimes be a little bit difficult. But we're talking about this internally as to how we're going to identify those issues, and so we'll keep a keen eye on this one. Metrics will be the number of communications developed from this tactic, and we plan on doing some reporting to the City Commission by the end of the year. Next one, implement strategic planning. Conduct a thorough assessment of the city's motor pool operations to identify areas for improvements, such as optimizing vehicle usage, reducing maintenance costs, and implementing fuel-efficient, environmentally friendly practices to enhance the efficiency and sustainability of the city's fleet management. We'll look at different opportunities for improvements to the motor pool, create a plan for those improvements, and monitor and review the changes to see if they did exactly what we intended them to do. So we'll look at the number of opportunities identified, number of changes to be made, and the success rate based on the number of successful changes. I think when we had talked about this initially, we were kind of looking to the future, right? Energy sustainability within our fleet, and so we'll utilize that as the primary target as we look at some different ways to tackle that. We think we will have this completed, at least the changeouts for the year, in Q3 of 2025, as well as a plan for future changeouts as well, too. Develop and implement a wellhead protection plan ordinance to safeguard the city's drinking water sources from contamination. This is one of those, you do it and that ends up meeting the goal. So adopting a wellhead protection ordinance and adoption of the ordinance are the two main drivers of this, both the tactic as well as the measurement. We think we should have this one wrapped up by Q2 of this year. Collaborate with key stakeholders to develop and implement a comprehensive economic development plan that identifies strategic priorities, opportunities for growth, initiatives to attract investment, create jobs, and foster economic prosperity. We'll identify our key stakeholder needs, align internal and external resources into a plan, and then adopt said plan. We believe we can have this completed by Q2 of this year. Enhance financial management. Review the creation of a dedicated grant writing program within the city to systematically identify, pursue, and secure grant opportunities from various resources. This one is to hire a grant coordinator, and we'll know that the metric is completed when that position is filled. We can also check this one off as well, too. But further work to be done aligns with our next goal: actively seek out and apply for grants from various sources to supplement the city's budget, fund critical projects and initiatives, and reduce reliance on taxpayer funds. We'll identify grants that align with the city's goals and objectives, and we'll apply for the grants as needed. Our metrics for this will be the number of grants applied for, number of grants awarded, and number of grants successfully managed until completion, with reporting coming to the City Commission in Q4 of '25. Conduct a comprehensive review of accounting policies and administrative procedures to ensure alignment with regulatory requirements and best practices. We talked about this last year, and that a lot of our policies are a number of different years old, and we just want to review some of those policies to make sure that they align with best practices, also with some of the changes in government accounting principles as well, too. So review our accounting policies, make changes as necessary, and review the changes to ensure success of new policies. Metrics will be the number of policies reviewed, as well as the number of policies changed. And we'll have this review conducted as well as a recommendation for any new policies by the end of Q2 in 2025. Lastly, evaluate utility billing fees and policies to ensure sufficient funding is in place to protect public health and maintain critical infrastructure while working to keep our rates as affordable as possible. We'll review our fees and ensure the established rates support intended activities. And then the metric for this would be the number of changes made to our rate structure. This tends to coordinate with our annual budget, and so we believe that this will be completed by Q3 of 2025.
Okay.
That said, that is the end of the second presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so Manager DeSenza, jump in here with some questions. First, for promoting professional development for recruitment and training, some of the benchmarks there, are we focusing our benchmarks on internal training and leadership development, or are we including opportunities for like interaction with outside organizations, MML, ICMA, et cetera?
Great question. I'm a fan of both. But I can tell you in our internal review, we've done very well in utilizing a lot of external training opportunities. To be honest with you, they come rather easy. We can send individuals to MML, we can send individuals to different professional development trainings and those kind of things. And so the organization has traditionally done very good at that, and I want to continue to see that happen into the future. But we also have to recognize that there are some things that we deal with on a very regular basis that we don't have the best training for. And I use this one for instance. Everyone has very different computer skills within the organization. And if we focus on even a single program like Microsoft Outlook, everyone's capabilities on that are just all over the spectrum. The idea is we want to establish what are those things that everyone in the organization has to be able to do, and then what are the training resources that we have for that, and make sure that people feel very comfortable utilizing those training resources and then can demonstrate those skills.
Okay, gotcha. I wanted to ask about waste. Our new recycling and trash pickup system, wanting to make it as successful as possible with the new implementation there. With it being a third party, talking about tweaks, like making tweaks and adjustments and everything, what does that process look like as far, because again, like we contract out, so like how does that look? What does that look like so far for us?
Yeah, I think there's been a few tweaks and such like that with the current program in place. So for instance, we had set out to utilize carts all throughout the city. In certain areas, we found that that was not feasible. We were able to work with, I think I stopped projecting, my apologies. We were able to work with Grainger on identifying solutions for certain areas where that's no longer feasible. So there are certain dense areas where utilizing a bag system with Grainger made the most sense, and so they were able to do things like that. There's certain instances in which pickup has been altered. Pickup for some individuals was traditionally done on alleys. The idea was to move it to the front streets to utilize the alleys as little as possible, because driving over those alleys has utilized and kind of beaten up the material that those alleys are made out of. But in certain instances, it certainly makes sense for more people to utilize those alleys. So in those instances, Grainger has been willing to adjust their pickup schedule as well, or their pickup route as well too. So little adjustments like that, any kind of adjustments going forward, obviously to keep neighborhoods happy, making sure that Grainger is not out there too early and disrupting folks with trying to sleep or those kind of things. So these are the little modifications that I'm aware of so far.
Okay, thank you. Last one, I just, as a bit of a comment on talking about education and outreach on just citizen involvement. Can't remember this. Let's see, develop and implement outreach programs to increase citizen engagement. You're talking about like identifying those issues that require education. It would just be encourage, like making sure you guys are using the Citizens Academy as an opportunity to get a sampling of like what people are unaware of, because you have people who are actively seeking out more information. So that was the one note I wanted to pass along there.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you.
But with that, other commissioners? Commissioner
Okay,
Hecke?
so Manager DeSantis, thank you for this robust presentation. Yeah, good work, right?
Thank you so much.
Kind of ambitious too, right? Okay, so, but that's good. I want to follow up on a couple of things, actually. Mayor Wingard has addressed one of them, but I want to go back to the outreach piece. I see that you assigned it to the financial, I think it's the financial office of financial manager.
Yeah, I've got to scroll down if we might be able
You
to
have to scroll
project.
back up
Yeah.
where, what's going on with your projector? I know that it's assigned to finance anyway.
Yeah.
So why is it assigned to finance as opposed to a responsibility of, several units?
Yeah, typically, I think the main driver in communications would be our communications department, and that falls underneath the finance director.
I see, okay.
So I had just noted it on here as being to the finance director, but obviously the finance director will designate that to the communications director.
Okay. All right. You talked about, at some point you mentioned some, organizational culture. It's around the section where you're talking about onboarding, training, and all that. So I'm wondering, if we have a sense of what the organizational culture looks like.
Hard to define right now, to be very honest with you, Commissioner. Yep,
okay, go
and I
ahead.
can just explain a little bit, because I think in any administrative transition, you have a shift in culture that just naturally happens. Organizations oftentimes, the culture, or oftentimes employees do sort of somewhat follow the leader's sort of representation, if you will. And so it's not really been that long between me and my predecessor. When you think about it, it's only been a few years, and we have well over 120 full-time employees here. So it's hard for that to really permeate through the organization. So I would say it's a culture in transition here right now. So it's difficult for me to define.
Is this something that you might consider looking, maybe working, sort of, exploring to at least hopefully, when we have another presentation, say to us, this is what the organizational culture looks like, right?
Yeah. I think our values haven't necessarily changed, and that still serves as a very good foundation for us. So things like professional development, teamwork, creativity, these things are some of our foundational values. And I don't necessarily think that has shifted. But the workplace is definitely different, obviously, over the past handful of years. And so we need to embrace other things such as different work schedules, work from home capabilities, leveraging future technology, those kind of things. These are the things that obviously I've talked with the city commission. I'm very big into myself. And so I try to instill those kind of values in the organization. And so I think that's at least one way in which we may be shifting in the future.
I'm encouraging you to explore that so that, it's more like updating the organizational culture. I acknowledge that it is a culture in transition, and it's not just simply because we have, we've got a transition from a previous manager to a new one, but something else has also happened. COVID has happened, technology has changed, and a whole range of things. And I do think that it's important to bear all of those things in mind and look at ways in which the organizational culture is migrating or, transforming in response to all of these things. And perhaps that's something that you could also take a look at and bring forward at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, it's your homework. Okay. All right. The last thing I have a question here. You were talking about PACER rating for the roads. Okay. Do we have, I don't have a sense of what streets and roads PACER rating is right now. So do you have a sense of what that might be or what it looks like? Okay, another homework.
It's probably best for a potential future presentation if the city commission is interested in that.
I am.
Actually, as it so happens, I know Director Moore and his team have spoken at a number of different state organizations about our asset management plan for streets, PACER ratings, those kind of things. So I think his team could do a really great job educating the city commission on what PACER ratings are, what our current rating is, and how our program aligns with either maintaining or improving that PACER rating into the future.
Excellent, thank you.
That's your homework assignment, my friend.
I think Commissioner Bush had some questions.
I know this isn't necessarily quite the place for this discussion, but I believe it bears asking, since we're talking about hiring a new grants director. Has there been any discussion, concern, reaction, et cetera, any city capabilities at risk because of federal level decisions about departments and grants and that sort of thing?
This all happened very quickly, obviously, with the concept of, let's say, the pause on federal funding. And so just as soon as we were trying to wrap our hands around it, the pause ended, and it was sort of crisis averted, at least for the time being here. Okay. But at least two projects in particular that we had concerns about, and it's just, it's not known to us only because of how the money is handed down. There's not a lot of federal funds that are handed directly from the federal government to us. The two programs in particular, the continued construction of our water resource recovery facility is funded by a state program which is backed by federal funds. Now the question though is, do those funds now, because they're in the state's pockets, technically continue to find their way to us, or would that pause affect those funds? Another one as well too is our Chill Grant program that we're moving forward with.
Right.
And as we currently have it, we had a meeting this morning, 26 applicants out of our targeted 43, but we still think we're going to make good use of the $500,000 that the state provided us. But regardless, the question was, because those funds are from HUD, would there be a pause on that even though those funds had already made it from HUD to the state of Michigan? And so we weren't sure on that necessarily. And just as soon as the state was, I think, looking into the issue, the pause on federal funding had ended. And so, as I said, crisis averted for the meantime here. But those are the two that are front and center for us, at least, that we know are directly tied to federal funding and could have been at stake.
Other questions from the commission?
Actually, I need clarity on that. Are those funds already in our accounts or we are expecting them?
No, those funds are not in our accounts.
Okay.
Especially the Chill funds, that is a grant in which we seek a reimbursement for. So we have to do that in a number of different tranches. So as we, let's say, put out $100,000 to the community to pay contractors, we'll seek a reimbursement from the state. They're typically on a 30-day turnaround for those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, any further questions? Thank you, Manager DeSense.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'll move into additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions which the commission would like to make? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move that we accept the agenda as, or that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to public input on agenda items. If you would like to speak on anything on the agenda currently, please step up to the podium. You'll have 5 minutes. I'd ask that you'd state your name and address. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak at this time? Is there any emails? Anyone on Zoom? No. Not seeing anyone rushing to the podium. We'll go ahead and close public input on agenda items, and we'll move into receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense.
Receipt of petitions and communications includes the fourth quarter investment report, report on 2025 deer call, and monthly report on police-related citizen complaints received.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment to Director Loria that I appreciated reading in the paper some information about it and hearing that one neighbor was unaware of what was going on and that you have a good response to that of, we can do more, door hangers or whatever next year. Thought that was a good idea.
Would anyone like to take any of the, oh, no, let's see. We can, at this point, any other comments on? We'll, in that case, move on to consent items. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held January 27, 2025, approval of the minutes from the closed session held January 27, 2025, approval to award the contract for the 2025 sidewalk replacement project to H&H Concrete of Clare, Michigan for $177,223, and approval of payrolls and warrants.
Are there any items that the commission would like removed from the consent items? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move we accept the consent items as presented.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. See, there are no public hearings this evening, so we shall move on to new business. First item in new business is we have considered budget amendment for fund balance allocation. Manager Sens, if you would, just tee this up a bit.
Absolutely. Staff is recommending that the City Commission allocate the following amounts from the city's unallocated fund balance to the following specific projects. For the City Hall retaining wall repair and replacement, the total project estimate is $1.4 million. However, because the city doesn't own all of the space here, this is a condo technically here that we're in, the city's responsibility would be $1.15 million on that project. And that is the retaining wall here between us and Broadway Street that needs a complete replacement. Parking lot 4, total project estimate is $152,000. And parking lot 5, total project estimate is $674,000. The above action will leave $5,918,840 in unassigned fund balance, representing 32% of annual expenditures.
Question, and this might be for Director Moore. What will the development of the retaining wall look like as far as, what will that process look like? Will it interrupt operations at all or anything?
We don't anticipate that it will. This will come back to the City Commission because we'll still have to bid this out, and this is likely to be a 2026 project at this point from talks with our engineering staff. We don't anticipate that that is going to disrupt any sort of our City Hall activities, though.
Gotcha. Let's see. Is there any other items of discussion on this or
I
questions?
just have a question. When I hear parking lot numbers, they just go right over my head. Is there a map that we could look at? I don't know if someone can pull up a map to say, because obviously one is bigger than the other.
I can try to get one pulled up here really quick, or Director Moore might have a better description at least.
Yeah, these 4 and 5 are on Washington Street. I forget if it's 4 or 5. One of them is the smaller one in that block just south of Broadway. And then that next one's the large lot, I think that's lot 5 at Washington and Michigan. But there is, if you go to the website, there's a map online that you can get. Yep.
Thanks.
While you're up there, Director Moore, do you know by any chance how those lots were originally numbered? I was looking at it and it seemed like a portion of them were trying to be like a concentric, like almost a spiral, but then I lost any kind of sense of a organizational system.
I don't know for certain, but if I had to bet, it's when they came into existence.
Okay.
I know that lot 11 was, I think it's lot 11. That was just the last, was.
Most recently
Most recent,
added. Okay.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
I don't know that for a fact. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussions on this item? I would consider or entertain a motion to approve. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the budget amendment for the fund balance allocation as presented.
Second.
Was that Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Gotcha. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item number 11, request to award the 2025 parking lots 4 and 5 reconstruction project to McGurk Sand Gravel for $598,245. Again, Manager Sens.
Staff is recommending that the reconstruction of parking lots 4 and 5 be awarded to McGurk Sand and Gravel. The project includes the removal and replacement of existing pavement in parking lot 4 and the removal and replacement of pavement, subbase, curb and gutter, and other infrastructure at parking lot 5. Construction is scheduled to take place between July 21st and September 12th. If you have any particular questions, of course, we have Director Moore here who knows the project quite well.
So just to clarify, and I always have to keep these things straight. So item number 10 was us budgeting for it. Item number 11 is us actually contracting it out. Let's see, a question, Director Moore. The budget came in pretty good as far as bids that we were looking at. The other two, it looks like the other two companies that put in bids were close to like nearly 100,000, 200,000 over what McGurk thoughts on that or anything? I'm glad to see we're getting a good deal, it seems, at the very least.
Yeah, for sure, this is a good trend, as opposed to what we've seen in prior years. So, yeah, it's a good thing, and our engineering staff have been in contact with the contractor, and they're comfortable with their price, and so, yeah, it's and McGurk's a stand-up company. I think we won't have a problem, so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we award the 2025 parking lots 4 and 5 reconstruction project to McGurk Sand and Gravel.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Let's see, at this time, we are out of new business items and we will move on to announcements on city-related issues and new business. Again, I want to take an opportunity to create space for all of our commissioners to have an opportunity to speak on anything that they'd like to bring forward to the commission, either for potential work or just to inform the public. Going alphabetically as I can remember off the top of my head, Commissioner Alsager, if,
I don't have anything tonight.
gotcha. Commissioner Bush.
I'm sorry, I don't actually either.
Okay, Commissioner Eke.
It's Black History Month, and there are a lot of events and speakers at CMU. I'm not sure what is going on in town, but I know that there is a calendar of events for CMU. So, and we just had a proclamation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in keeping with that, I hope that, residents attend, these events. They are free, so.
Thank you. Let's see, next would be Commissioner Perschbacher.
There's a couple of things. I saw this on Facebook today from the city, that some people are still getting charged for the recycling on their water bill, but understand that will be caught up, and you will be refunded for that. I think it's $250 that has been charged per month. Also, I would like to ask Manager DeSense to make sure that all applications for the vacant seat be put in the Dropbox for the city commission, so the city commission can view all of those.
The deadline is tomorrow. Yeah, that
Well,
would be.
the deadline is
12th.
Wednesday, the 12th.
Oh, Wednesday, yes.
We had set an end of business for Wednesday. Let's see. Thank you, Commissioner Perschbacher. Commissioner Rollins?
Well, I've been, over the past 3 weeks, been approached by some of our residents concerning some of our elderly residents navigating their trash bins in the snow. It's been proven difficult for them, and they neither have the resources or the family support in order for them to help out. Considering that we are under a storm watch starting on Wednesday, where we're supposed to get like 8 inches of snow, for some of those residents that still have trash pickup, it's going to prove to be difficult for them to be able to navigate it themselves. Perhaps we can discuss some possible solutions or incentives to help these residents out, because it is a real problem, and it's one that I don't think we can ignore, considering that Granger is able to make some accommodations for certain situations. We should try to come up with some accommodations for some of our elderly residents that are not able to navigate the winter weather along with their trash service.
Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. Yeah, this is, in making the change, we want to make this as successful as possible. And that
Right.
was a concern that was brought
Right, and
forward
it was
at that
brought
time.
up
Yeah.
before we even voted. Some of the residents did come here and speak about the difficulty of navigating this, and it's going to be a problem. I mean, we need to be proactive rather than reactive, so we should be able to come up with some type of solution to help these folks out.
Is there, talking about this item, just interest, gauging for interest from other
Commissioner
Rollins.
Collins, and yeah, my brain fatigue right now. And no, you are absolutely correct, because a number of residents came up here and, talked about, the bulkiness of the containers and mobility issues and a whole range of things. And I think, since we signed this contract, it is also maybe, I want to say an obligation on our part, to make sure that, the contractor is accommodating, because this is part of it. And it's, this is the first year. So in many ways, we're learning. But I think that it is important. We can't alienate or exclude a certain percentage of the population or ignore, those comments, because I do remember that, right? So we have to make whole, the population that might be affected by the size of these huge, of these containers. And, I agree, we, perhaps, Manager DeSantis needs to have a conversation with, Granger to address this particular issue, and then maybe, and bring that forward and hopefully inform the residents, as soon as possible, what we can do to remedy this. I have a challenge, even, those containers are almost as tall as me, all right? Paul, and I'm looking at that, and in the snow, seriously, yeah. So I understand that dilemma, so we need to do something about that.
Yeah, talking on this topic, again, yeah, the contract was signed to perform these services in this manner. So I'm glad talking earlier with during the presentation with Manager DeSantis, I've been appreciative of like the tweaks that they've made thus far. And, but yeah, there are concerns, so we can continue to address them. The implementation and the execution and the rollout of this is part of our 2025 goals and objectives. So
Absolutely.
with the transition, we want to make sure that we're, not leaving residents behind in anything. So I think we can continue to have this be part of our conversation, be something that we look at going into probably the rest of the quarter, to make sure that we're addressing these issues here. Gotcha.
I have, on a related question, somebody asked me whether the city was still accepting, the, what is it?
Buybacks?
The labels, so are we still accepting those?
Yep, we are still issuing refunds.
Okay, so all they have to do is just bring them to City Hall?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I said, but I want to make sure I'm not communicating incorrectly.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think we can have further discussion on how best to go about addressing this. I know always encouraging residents to reach out to members of city staff with feedback on these issues, and staff will continue to bring these issues to ourselves. And this, again, it's a contract that we signed, so it'll have to be a commission-led effort as well, of like, this
Right.
is something that we're aware of as an issue for us, so.
Or even perhaps, helping the resident plow out their sidewalk or the entrance to their driveway. Because now that we have an ordinance saying that that's required, some of them are not even able to do that either because of mobility issues or whatnot. So there's different ways that we can go about resolving this issue satisfactory for everybody involved. I think we have to get a little creative,
Do you think potentially like a work session just to like addressing
Yeah.
this issue into the
I think that
future?
would be-
We could invite like a representative from Granger to like help
Right.
like communicate and talk with us on like different options
I
potentially
think that
available.
would be great.
Okay, gotcha. That's something that we can work on there. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. As for myself, on announcements to related issues, just wanted to remind residents that if you're interested in applying for the vacant city commission seat, you have until Wednesday, the 12th. I believe, end of business day, did we say was that listed as 4:30 or was that 5, I can.
Correct, end of business 4:30.
4:30, thank you, to get that application in for the commission to be able to review. And we will appoint a seat. That person will serve until the August election, which is being set up. And then, again, in anticipation of August election, there will be a special election to fill that seat for the remainder of the term, ending in December 2026. Let's see. Go to the city's website for the full details on that. With that, we can open up public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. So is there anyone in the? Oh,
May we have an update on the fate of the RFP for, the climate?
Yeah.
So do we have anything? Because we said we wanted to know where, we needed a quick response so that we can move forward.
My apologies, I didn't hear the question.
The climate, we're going to do the climate evaluation assessment, and we were looking for people who would, do that, the workplace climate.
Okay, yes.
So what is, where is the RFP? Just an update.
Yep.
On where we are with that.
RFP, yep, the RFP is sent out, and I can send a copy to the city commission here so all of you can see it. It is currently on BidNet as well as on the Michigan Municipal League website.
Okay, so it's not, is there a link on the city's website though?
Not on the city's website, no.
Or wouldn't it help if there, if we had a link there so that people who don't, that it's on BidNet and on MML's website, will find it on our website and maybe go visit.
Yeah, typically BidNet and the MML website is where a consultant would go to look for such RFPs. It's not typical that they would just go to the individual city's website, and the links on those websites would have all of the information they would need to submit a proposal.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Any other announcements on city-related issues and new business? Okay, with that, we'll move on to public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you are in the public and would like to speak, please come up to the microphone. You'll have 5 minutes. With that, please state your name and your address for the record.
Bill Gerstlauer, 15140 East Gaylord. I'm just responding to the issue with the garbage carts. I know I live in condo nation, as I call it, with a lot of the seniors, and they're having the issues. But, moving these carts, I'm just wondering, are these people basically, do they have any contact with their neighbors to just ask them, could you grab my cart for me to move my car? I did, for all my neighbors, because I'm home. And they're at work, so I said, I'll just grab them and take them all back. Just wondering, there's maybe some kind of community list, for neighbors to just help. That would be the easiest solution. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak at this time? Is there anyone on Zoom? Any emails? With that, I'll close public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Let's see, at this time, it is 8:06. We do have a work session on the city manager review process. Asking members of the commission if we would want a 5-minute recess or if we would want.
Yes,
Gotcha.
please.
Gotcha. With that, we're going to go into a recess and we'll resume. It's about to turn 8:07. We will resume at 8:12.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go back into the swing of things here. We are going to be going into the work session, talking about the city manager review process. So talking about this process, in 2023, we had, was the last time we had done a city manager, a review of the city manager. I know coming out of that, a number of the members of the commission had felt wanting a better format of a performance review form to work with in this process. And then 2024, that we did not get that review completed. And I think that's on the commission at large that that process didn't get completed. It's kind of talking about all of this. One of the most significant functions that the city commission itself does play is the hiring and oversight of our city manager, because we entrust them to perform a lot of functions and handle the day-to-day basis. I always have to remind residents that, I'm part-time. I have to maintain a job elsewhere, and I get to do this kind of on a weekend deal. But in any case, talking about the review process, also, it's not, the way, as I've been digging into this, it's also been, and trying to find ways to improve this, it's realizing that the review of the manager also does present kind of also a bit of a review of the city. The manager is the primary way that we interact with city staff, the way we interact with the organization, and the manager will carry out policies and goals that we set. So it's not just about their performance, but it's also about just understand our understanding of the city as a whole, because it's making sure that we can develop them as a leader, and it's also making sure that if any of our policies are being poorly received, for example, we can take some of the heat for that. So kind of that's what brought three of the documents that were shared in the packets. We had the 2023 annual performance review, which we had started out with, and then two documents that I had shared along with that was the ICMA, just a general evaluation form that they provided. I received that from the Michigan Municipal League, and then the other one was a copy from one performed by Port Huron, who has a similar structure to us as well. And both of these, I feel, get into a lot more of the specifics and the nitty gritty of government organization to some degree. And I feel like also reviewing these documents, it forces the reviewer to ask a lot more questions of themselves also, and it gives a bit more context for what it is we're looking to review. But it's also keeping in mind talking to the commission that a review is also going to be gauging ourselves for what values are we looking for? What is it that we are expecting of our staff member? And in our case, the city commission, the city manager, you are our sole staff member. You have 7 bosses micromanaging your every move. And so I apologize for that burden there, Aaron. So as far as we're doing this, we want to make sure that we kind of my draw to updating this process is, again, one, from leadership development, we want to make sure that we're able to provide Aaron and manager dissents opportunities for growth and opportunities and feedback to how he's doing. We also want it as, lost my train of thought there. But it's also making sure that, to rate someone and to evaluate someone, we also need to make sure that we ourselves are paying attention to key benchmarks and establishing those benchmarks. So that's kind of a large part of the question that I'm putting back to the rest of the commission this evening as part of this discussion is, as we're looking at different benchmarks, takeaways from what we're seeing, what we see from some of the other examples provided. I know another portion of this is also that, especially going back to what we were doing in 2023, a lot of it felt very subjective versus objective. And the problem being is that, like, you know, you can have a great experience with one person, but you also don't know what other experiences are for other people. Or even, I go back to looking at the 2023 performance review, the first question is customer service. Responds in a timely, courteous, and effective manner to the hundreds of annual calls for service received from Mount Pleasant residents. Part of that also is that we, like, per our expectations variance, we know that the manager DeSense himself is not responding individually to these hundreds of calls. So how do we evaluate that, like, that's being played out, that's being, like, handled? I'm excited by our goals and objectives for the year because it's putting into place a lot of opportunities for, again, as Manager DeSense had mentioned in his presentation, benchmarks and establishing benchmarks for, like, community engagement, resident feedback and everything. And I think we could potentially look to include some of those reports back into our process going into the future. But at this point, I've also been talking a lot. So I'd like to put it back to the rest of the commission for their thoughts and any feedback and questions.
I have comments.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Ranga.
Yeah, so I asked for the city managers, the job description or the contract language, because I wanted to see it so that, you know, to make sure that we're evaluating. The way I see this is that we look at how we talk about the city manager's responsibilities, but we also look at the contract language, because it would be unfair to evaluate the city manager on something that we did not agree on, okay? External to everything else that we've said. So for me, what would be ideal is a combination of the language in our city charter that says this is the manager's responsibility, and the language here in the contract that says this is what the city manager has to do. So we combine those. And that way, if we have to modify things later on as we grow, as we talk about this organizational culture, then we do that. But right now, I think, you know, I think that what binds us in terms of the evaluation right now, because, you know, I'm going to rephrase this. I don't want to bring in something that pertains to the future into the city manager's evaluation right now. What is before us that says this is what the city manager is accountable for, has to do, both in the charter, you know, language describing the city manager's responsibilities, and in the contract language that the agreement we have with the city manager. That's where I am. So we combine those and then come up with, you know, look at what has been used for the evaluation to see whether that aligns with what we have and where we can tweak it to represent these two documents. I don't know, am I making sense here?
Yeah, you're making sense.
Okay.
And this is a work session, so.
Yeah, because, you know, I want to maintain the integrity, you know, of the process as well as fairness in this. I don't want to evaluate the city manager based on what expectations of him that are not part of what, you know, that are not here, right? Or in the charter itself, you know? Because, you know, for me, those are the guiding documents. Okay, did I lose somebody? Those are the guiding documents for me that say, okay, he has to do this. Here is an example, all right? So it says to us in the 1, 2, 3, 4th, even in the second paragraph of the city manager's, this general summary, it tells us what he's responsible for. And so we should look at, you know, the documents we have before us, because it seems to me as if we're thinking of the document we're going to use right now, but at the same time, we're thinking about a document that we're going to use in the future. I want to separate them. What is the document we're going to use right now? And then if we have to tweak evaluate him on what he is expected to do, he's accountable for, within this particular period that, and then because this says that, and then we develop, see where we tweak the document, for, based on the goals that we have now created, right, to incorporate those, all right? So I'm looking at this saying, okay, does it apply, say, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph, does it apply management principles? Does that evaluation form ask about that, all right? Does it embrace team involvement? Does the evaluation form ask about that? Because that also deals with, workplace climate, communication and performance expectation practices. What kinds of communication and performance practices, does he use, right? Does he, hey, demonstration of excellence through mentoring. Does he mentor staff, or look at team concepts? What about problem solving and innovation action? So we go through this, delineating what has been, identified here, because in many ways, that's what the city manager said, yeah, I'm going to do all these things. I agree that I'm going to do these things. And so let's create a document that addresses these things, and then, hopefully get a narrative that says to us, yeah, I don't want a yes or no. Of course, that it would include yes or no, but then we'll ask for more details.
So we should basically create a rubric.
Well, yeah, using this.
Yes.
Right, because this is just a narrative, but you
Right.
create a rubric using the things that he says, yeah, he's gonna do, and then look at the charter and say, hey, the charter says you're doing these things. Okay, combine them. That would be fair for me because I don't know. But anyway, that's where my head is. I just think that for me, that would be fair. I
Commissioner
don't want to
Alsager.
manufacture things that are not there, right?
Yeah, Commissioner Alsager.
The only thing I disagree with is I think if we come up with a good document that matches what is in the contract, it should be a document that could be used in future years as well.
Yes, I'm not disputing that. I'm just simply saying we can't evaluate him, using things that are not in this document. I agree with you. Yes.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Perschbacher?
I think that the 2 annual performance reviews that have been presented include all of these essential job functions in one way or another. So
We may have to clarify
I'm not sure if we
that.
should actually reinvent the wheel. I think what we should figure out which one we want to use.
I agree. So let's see which one. I mean, I'm not disputing that. I just want to make sure it's clean and fair.
Commissioner Bush?
Yeah, I was going to say, it really depends on how much, effort over the spectrum we want to place. But I do think that this is a good opportunity to perhaps bring these essentially 2 documents in a little bit more congruence. And make sure everything, on this is represented and represented in a balanced way. I don't think it's a bad thing to review it, but yeah, I agree that document that Mayor Wingard gave us was very complete and did seem to cover all the points, but I think in regards to, just like we evaluate policy and evaluate like the charter, just is a good time to maybe make sure these documents are working together.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, kind of going through, not reinventing the wheel. I think that's a good point, but it's also it's refining. To going back to what I'm hearing from Commissioner or Vice Mayor Eke, it's probably just refining and make sure everything's included amongst the different documents. So bringing things into congruence is good there. I think making sure into the future we'll probably have as part of the review packet something that we could do at an earlier point. By the manager's contract, we need to have this out in October. And right now, we're also working through the fact that we need to complete 2020 or 2024's review as well. But going into the future for the standard yearly review, having these materials there. So having the city managers and the city manager's job description attached directly with our review packet, having going through the charter and breaking down specific responsibilities that are listed in there. Something I'd actually like to, and I think one thing as we're going through this conversation, I'd like to just circle back to is I think it also goes back to the commission's organization as well, of just our ability to present oversight to the city. So it's how are we gauging, how are we engaging and registering what's going on? And that's where, again, opportunities of like creating an apparatus of accountability of some level. Because right now it feels like, I know there's different portions where we get reports from the city, financial reports, like any questions in these packets that we're looking at about city finances. Are city finances being handled? Are we going through processes correctly? I can answer those. I know 100% our finances, we're going through those regularly, and those are being addressed because we have consistent reporting on that. And it's actually built into the charter timelines for that. But like other things that we might be looking at, it's like, is there like, and this I don't think will this might be a question for the future, but is there additional information that the commission would want to set up that we can feel more comfortable in addressing what's going on at the city, so we can better say, I see metrics coming from like our resident reviews when they get service and everything, and survey results say that when people come in, on average, they're getting a positive experience. So just kind of, again, I think it goes back to just the larger, how does the commission engage with the city, and like what information are we seeking out and requesting, so we can feel comfortable performing an evaluation and performing that essential duty of our job.
I wonder, I don't recall whether do we have a suggestion box upstairs?
The website, I think.
No, but bear in mind that not everybody
No, we do
goes to
have
the
one,
web.
though. We do have
Upstairs?
one. Yeah, don't we?
I don't remember. I mean, I thought about the website, but not everybody wants to go to the website, right? Or, but I don't know, is there, so people,
I don't know.
you say, for instance, I in particular, I don't mind going to the website, but I also have a tendency of, if I'm driving and suddenly I have business to do in City Hall, where I'll probably just drive up there and go, right? And go ask, so if somebody comes up there and does their business, and I don't know whether we have a suggestion box right up front there, either there or even somewhere, down here, that somebody can leave a message in as they're exiting. It's not a bad idea. It won't. How much is it going to cost us to put one?
I think the specific outcome, or like the specific way we act upon it and everything isn't maybe necessarily the key question and everything to the discussion, but it's more just taking into the broader account of like how we can view different things. So if we were to set to the staff to the task of we want to, and which we have in our yearly goals, we want to better intake community feedback. They would probably be able to provide a wide swath of ways we can take and make sure we're taking it.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm just simply asking if there is a suggestion box. I mean, a lot of organizations have that. You can make comments via website, but some people won't do that. What about how do you capture feedback from people who actually physically come in, who are not necessarily going to the website? So I'm looking at multiple, avenues for doing that. I don't know. It's I think the manager can explore that. But I want to go back to the document that we're looking at. For instance, I'm
Which
looking
document
at
are you looking at?
The rubric that is used, for the cities, the instructions, under the instructions,
It's like
right?
it's the IC, is that the ICMA or is that
No,
Port
this is the
Huron?
Mount Pleasant one, so the city of Mount Pleasant 2023, if we say hypothetically to, in deference to Commissioner Pershbacher, some of this, some of the ideas, are in there. But there's also quite a lot that's not in there, which sort of says, it can be tweaked. Say, for instance, okay, you're talking about, I see something here on policy execution, relations with elected members, so in other words, us, professional skills and status, individual characteristics, but I need to see something that has to do with, let's see, leadership and, general leadership and management style. You get that in under 7, the staffing section, all right? So there is a piece here that talks about, let's see, mentoring and team building and all of that. Well, okay. I don't see that here under 7, and I don't see it addressed anyway. So you see supervision, okay. Do we use, maybe under supervision, can we change that subheading? Because it's not just simply supervision, it's also leadership, right?
Yeah, well, I think especially in the other 2 packets that we're seeing, is so supervision and leadership, we could separate those 2 topics because it has 7 is supervision / leadership. We could separate those 2 topics, or as we're seeing in the other 2 examples that were provided, we can add more of like subheadings to it, so it's a group of questions versus just that one single topic question.
Yes, and I think that creates problem. Because then people are stuck. Okay. And the challenge with this is, so you give them this huge document that delineates all these things, and then you say to them up here, and this is where the big problem is, where you've got the numbering with all the elements fused together, and they have to say acceptable needs, meets, exceeds, and all that. That's where your challenge is, because you're not getting the narrative in there, Look, I like narratives, okay? Just telling me 1, 2, 3 doesn't help me at all, because it's not telling me what's in your head and what do you mean by 1? And how you're thinking about all of this, okay? And that's the problem with scores that are like this. So you say 1, what do you mean by, okay, what is, 1 or needs improvement? So in what areas, how, and all of that. So, I suppose they could do that in the comment section, but I think we can tweak this,
Yeah, Commissioner Pershbacher.
The problem with using narratives as the only way of looking at it is that it is easily skewed by whoever is reading it based on their biases. The
that's
best
true,
way to
too.
do it is to do it with a Likert scale, 1 through 5, agree, strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree, or very much, not so much, whatever. That gives you a more accurate reading than using a narrative, because a narrative can be easily skewed by your bias.
But both of them can, even with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who is rating this?
Commissioner Bush.
I understand where you're coming from.
Both of,
Because I do see things in a narrative form, but I've kind of, because there's a reason why you need data, and that is because instead of imagining the feedback of one person's narrative, it's a way to build a global narrative in a sense of seeing if common themes are coming up and in the different areas. There are other ways of getting like a narrative evaluation, but I just don't think that's something of that scale. I don't think would be required here. And then a pie chart. I'm just seeing a pie chart.
Commissioner Perschbacher, I jumped the gun as hands were going up. Did you have additional comments that you? Okay, gotcha.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. That was me. So yeah, it's how do we take the multiple reviews of all 7 different commissioners and combine them into one? That's where the rating scale comes into play the biggest, because is the most essential, because again, it allows us to combine that data into ultimately a single averaged review. But then I know also that, like, speaking with Manager DeSense, that in reviews, the narratives are appreciated because they do provide more context. They provide that the numbers might otherwise not. So as we're looking at this, it'll probably be a combination. I think we have to have that like rating scale on it. But if there's definitely the opportunity for narratives.
Just combine them. I mean, because we do need that. Just simply going with just, the numbers for me would be very unsatisfactory, because then I agree with, Commissioner Perschbacher that yes, just getting the narrative exclusively would skew the data. Just simply getting numbers will equally skew the data, because now the interpretation will depend again on the bias of whoever is looking at it. What does that mean to have a 3? Maybe not. In what way? I don't know how. What ways? What needs to be improved or not improved? What are the issues? So I do think that maybe, we will need the narrative at some point, somewhere. So that we have both, and hopefully the narrative and the raw data, or the numbers, or the quantitative piece section would line up.
Commissioner Alsager.
Looking at the 3 that you provided, the second one seems to just be number-based at first, but then there's many lines for descriptive evaluation as well, that it doesn't match up perfectly with the one with the contract, but it hits most of the points.
Gotcha. It seems to be the most inclusive of everything there. Okay.
Yeah, it starts on page 38 out of 50.
Gotcha.
Is this something that, we probably could combined, see where there are gaps in, in the 2023, the cities, and
The documents
tweak,
provided.
the documents, and tweak that.
Yeah, and we can create these to be our own. So it's getting, like, this is where the feedback from the work session is important. And I am, like, based off of this work session, we'll probably have probably one more work session on this to just make sure everyone's comfortable with a finished product. But we can probably move forward, and I think Commissioner Alsager, again, this one's the ICMA and everything that you were talking about, I believe, where it provides just the most general oversight and probably can be, and if we are making tweaks, can be the most easily tweaked. And I think it's something that we can develop over time, but I did want to go back to Port Hurons. One thing I liked about Port Hurons is the information beforehand that it provides to the people making this evaluation. It gives a sense of, gives a bit of direction to again, anyone presenting this evaluation. And it forms like what we should be looking out for again throughout the year. And that's where, again, it comes back to what do we value as a commission, so that's my final thoughts there on that. But it sounds like, we can probably move forward, I think, with the general ICMA and make tweaks and modifications from there and create it into, like, probably part of a larger packet there for us to be able to review and work off of. other thoughts or comments at this time? Again, we'll work on this and then we can work on revisiting this in another work session into the future. But again, any thoughts, comments, questions from any of the other members of the commission?
I'm okay with, tweaking what we have, looking at, we're doing comparative work here. See how, we have, our document has strengths, it has gaps. And, so where can we get some information from the other two to incorporate, into our document and come up with something we will accept or we find agreeable? The question then is, what time frame are we giving ourselves to get this done?
Let's see. Yeah, so talking about time frame on this, let's see. Let's see, right now it is the February 10th meeting. Probably, if it's comfortable with the commission, just to, again, come up with something that works best and well, we could potentially have a work session either the 10th or March 10th or 24th, if that's an acceptable time frame, or we could push it to have a secondary work session on the 24th on this same topic. Commissioner Bush?
Just for clarity, is this the evaluation that we are planning on using to make up for our tardy evaluation from last year?
That would be the idea there. Would you like to have that, with that in mind, would it be?
Well, I'm just concerned, per, communication that we had for manager dissents in regards to like requesting a performance review and subsequent potential raise. And I just, I recognize that is an issue. I mean, perhaps maybe we could agree to something along the lines of I don't know what would be appropriate, but maybe like a retro sort of situation. What's it called? Prorated type thing. Like when you,
Lost.
what is it called again?
Retroactive?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So like, so that knowing that it was the commission's missing the October application, that we did not pursue, that it was our fault that we didn't do the evaluation, is what I'm trying to say. And so acknowledging that, saying that, hey, like, we should have had this completed, we do not, and maybe take that into consideration as a retroactive, like, theoretically, we could say this is, does that make sense?
We do this after we do the evaluation or before we do the evaluation?
Well, that's why I'm saying I don't really know what's appropriate.
I need clarity.
I don't know what's appropriate. I just want to acknowledge that the reason why we're doing this is because we didn't do this last year.
Yes.
And I want to make sure it's done right. But at the same time, I don't want to penalize manager dissents for our negligence on doing this in a timely fashion. I also don't want to rush it. So I am just offering this as a potential for consideration in a way to make us feel like we have a little bit more grace and time to address this evaluation process. Does that?
Okay, yeah, I'm still lost. So are you saying that we should go ahead and address manager dissent's salary increase and then do the evaluate, then develop an evaluation tool for the future? Or are you saying that we should go ahead, develop the evaluation tool, and then do the evaluation and, address,
that's what
manager dissent's, salary, but retroactive, bearing in mind that we have to do this retroactively?
So that's what I don't know is if any of this is appropriate financially. I don't see what would be the barrier, but I'm not aware if we're overstepping something because we're a municipality or yada yada. But I just know this is something that might have been done in a corporate field that this was. So yes, that we would agree, and that's where I don't know if this is appropriate, but if we can agree as a commission to maybe set a certain date and just say, pending satisfactory review, we will grant a, Oh, look, our finance director's here. Does any?
This
Does
might
any of
be
this, yeah.
it might, I don't know if that's necessarily finance or it'd be more so HR necessarily
Yeah,
on that.
can we just-
I think the point that you're making of like wanting to be responsive to this was a duty of the commission to complete in
Yes.
2024 that we did not complete.
Yes.
So we do owe it to be responsive to our staff, on that end. So we can,
Yes.
again, be competitive, we can be a fair and impartial workplace.
Yes.
Yes, I think, let's see. Yes, those are all good points, and I think as far as like potentially doing like anything retroactively, I think we can do that.
It's gonna be retroactive. no
It
matter
has
what
to
Yeah,
we
no
do.
matter what we do.
Yeah,
So
no
we
matter
might as
what
well
we
get
do.
it done right the first time.
Right.
rather
Yeah.
than-
But that's what I'm saying, where like we would still be doing everything by the book. It would just be a,
Retroactively.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think that we need to develop the tool, do the evaluation, and, give manager the sense, his salary retroactively.
Gotcha. Commissioner Alsager?
Well, one other idea would be just to use one of these as is to do a quicker review and
That's a
then
good
spend
point,
some
too.
time
Yes.
developing one
Yes.
that we're happier with.
I would support that.
If the commission is happy with, again, the more general one being the ICMA there, I can have that prepared and distributed by the February 24th meeting if the commissioner is
I would
commission's comfortable
support
with
that so that we address that and then
And then we-
develop a tool for, for this coming year.
So that way, again, we can meet those better expectations that we're
Yeah.
setting for ourselves.
it is still a quality document, so I would go along with that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. In that case,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have, next time y'all can cut to the chase and just say, hey, Boomer, don't overcomplicate this and everything. Just, yeah, we can
no,
go with
but-
what we got.
No, but we need this document, and
Yeah.
I don't think that it would be fair to hold him I don't want to
Yes.
use the word hostage, but.
Or his salary hostage.
His salary hostage, because we haven't, we don't have the document we need. So let's use what we have right now and address that and then move forward.
Well, I appreciate the commission's discussion and feedback on this. However long it takes, I do feel like this was a good discussion this evening. And I think it's something that, again, this is going to be going on to the future. But we'll have this out for the February 24th meeting for commission to start doing review of. Let's see. That's the end of the work session. In that case, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second? There is a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We stand adjourned at 8:50 PM.